The massive alien space station floated in the black void of space like a giant metal city. It was called Nexus Prime, and it was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Strange lights blinked along its surface, and ships from many different alien worlds were docked at its ports. This was where the Galactic Council met to decide the fate of entire species. Captain Jake Morrison pressed his face against the small window of his transport ship. The station grew larger as they got closer, and he could see the details of its alien design. Twisted metal spires reached out in all directions like the arms of some giant creature. He had been here many times before, but it still made him feel small and alone. "They think today is the day we give up," said Dr. Lisa Warren. She sat next to Morrison, reading through her notes one more time. She was a smart woman who studied alien cultures, and she knew how these beings thought. Morrison touched the small device in his ear. A voice came through from far away in space. It was Admiral Ben Carter, speaking from the human fleet that was hiding behind a distant moon. "Jake, remember what we talked about," Carter said. "You're not there to make any deals. Just keep them talking until we're ready." "I understand, sir," Morrison replied quietly. He looked at Warren. "Are you ready for this?" She closed her notebook and stood up. "Ready as anyone can be to walk into a room full of aliens who want to wipe out our entire race." Their ship made a soft bump as it connected to the station. The doors opened with a hissing sound, and they stepped into the alien world. The air felt thick and smelled like metal mixed with something sweet. The gravity was heavier than Earth's, making each step feel like hard work. Robot guards with glowing red eyes led them through long hallways. Morrison saw aliens everywhere. Some walked on two legs like humans, but that was where the similarity ended. Others crawled on the walls or floated through the air like ghosts made of light. The Zephyrians looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies sparkled and changed color as they moved. They made no sound when they walked, which Morrison found very creepy. The Morvek were giant bugs, as tall as a man but with too many arms and legs. Their black eyes never blinked, and they made clicking sounds when they talked. The worst ones were the ethereal communion. They weren't really solid at all, just glowing shapes that kept changing form. Morrison could never tell if he was looking at one alien or many aliens grouped together. Sometimes they looked almost human, and sometimes they looked like nothing at all. The biggest aliens were the Titan hegemony. They were made of living rock and metal, each one as tall as a 3-story building. When they moved, the whole station shook. Morrison wondered how the station could hold their weight. The council chamber was enormous. Seats were arranged in a big circle, and representatives from 12 different alien species sat looking down at where the humans would stand. In the center of it all was Speaker Zethkar of the Zephyrians. His crystal body glowed with blue light, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like beautiful music mixed with the sound of breaking glass. "Humans," he began, and the way he said the word made it sound dirty. "You have been called here for the last time. For 3 years we have talked. For 3 years we have given you chances to accept your place in our galaxy. Today, that ends." Morrison and Warren walked to the center of the huge room. Their footsteps echoed off the walls. Around them, hundreds of alien eyes watched every move they made. Morrison felt like a tiny mouse surrounded by hungry cats, but he kept his face calm and his back straight. "We have been very patient with your kind," Zethkar continued. "You are young and stupid, like children playing with dangerous toys. But even children must learn when to stop playing." A Morvek council member made a loud clicking sound with his mouthparts. "Your people spread through our galaxy like a disease. You take planets without asking permission. You build weapons without telling us. You act like you own everything you touch. The galaxy belongs to those who have earned the right to rule it," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere. At once, it was one of the ethereal communion, its shape shifting like smoke in the wind. "We have controlled this galaxy for millions of years. Your species only learned to make fire yesterday." Morrison listened to all of this without changing his expression. He had heard the same words many times before in other meetings. The aliens always talked about how old they were, how wise they were, how humans were just babies who needed to be taught a lesson. "Our terms are very simple," Zethkar said, and his crystal body grew brighter. "You will give us 70% of your colonies. You will let our armies occupy the planets you keep. You will destroy half of your warships and give us control of the rest. You will accept limits on how many children you can have and what technology you can use. Do this, and we will let your species live." The huge chamber became completely silent. Morrison could hear his own heart beating. Warren stood perfectly still next to him, but he could see that her hands were clenched into tight fists. "And if we say no?" Morrison asked. Zethkar's light pulsed brighter and brighter. "Then you will face the combined power of civilizations that ruled the stars before your son was even born. 12 species with war fleets that number in the millions of ships. Your entire race will be destroyed completely." Morrison nodded slowly, as if he was thinking about what he had heard. Around the chamber, the aliens leaned forward in their seats, waiting for humanity to surrender. They had no doubt about what would happen. In their minds, the humans had no choice at all. They were too young, too weak, too small to fight against the might of the Galactic Council. Morrison looked up at Zethkar and smiled, but it was not the smile of a man who had been beaten. "Speaker Zethkar, honored members of the Galactic Council," he said, and his voice carried clearly through the enormous room. "We have listened carefully to your very generous offer. We have thought about your terms with great care." He stopped talking, letting the silence stretch out longer and longer. The aliens waited, completely sure they were about to hear humanity give up. "However," Morrison continued, "humanity respectfully declines your offer." The chamber exploded into complete chaos. The Morvik began clicking and buzzing in rage. The ethereal communion blazed with angry light. The Titan hegemony stomped their massive feet, making the entire station shake like it was going to fall apart. Zethkar's crystal body became so bright it hurt to look at. "You refuse?" Zethkar's voice was no longer beautiful. Now it sounded like glass being crushed under a heavy boot. "You dare to refuse the will of the Galactic Council?" Morrison's smile never went away. "We dare to do many things, Speaker. That's what makes us human." The noise grew even louder. Alien voices filled the chamber with sounds of fury and complete shock. They had never imagined that the young human species would have the courage to say no to them. Warren stepped forward. "If there's nothing else you need to discuss, we'll be leaving now." "You will not leave this place," Zethkar snarled like an angry animal. "Guards, arrest these creatures immediately." But Morrison held up his hand. And it was a small device that began to glow with a soft red light. "I wouldn't try that if I were you. This is what we humans call a dead man's switch. If anything happens to us, if we don't report back to our people safely, then our fleets will consider it an act of war." The alien guards stopped moving. They looked to their leaders for orders, but the council members were frozen with shock and rage. "You have made your choice," Zethkar said finally, his voice cold as winter. "When your worlds burn and your children cry for mercy, remember that we offered you peace." Morrison and Warren turned around and walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the now silent chamber as hundreds of alien eyes watched them leave. "See you around," Morrison called back over his shoulder as they reached their ship and started the engines. Warren finally spoke again. "Do you think they believed our bluff?" Morrison guided their ship away from the massive station. Behind them, he could see the Galactic Council already calling for their war fleets to gather. "It doesn't matter if they believed it or not," he said. "We got exactly what we came for." "Which was what?" Morrison smiled as their ship disappeared into the darkness of space, leaving behind a council chamber full of aliens who had no idea What storm they had just unleashed. Time, he said. We bought humanity the time we needed to show these ancient species what happens when you threaten the young and the foolish. The human colony world of New Terra looked peaceful from space. Green forests covered most of the land, and blue oceans sparkled in the light of the system's yellow sun. Small cities dotted the continents, connected by roads that looked like thin lines from orbit. To anyone watching, it seemed like a quiet farming world where people lived simple lives, but deep underground, in a bunker that went down for miles, the real leaders of humanity were gathered around a massive table. The room was filled with screens showing star maps, ship positions, and battle plans. General Matt Blake stood at the head of the table, his weathered face serious as he watched the news from Nexus Prime. So they said no, Blake said, turning to face the other military leaders. Jake did exactly what we told him to do. Commander Amy Torres leaned back in her chair. She was the captain of the warship USS Defiance, and she had been waiting for this moment for 3 years. About time. I was getting tired of pretending we were scared of those crystal freaks and bug monsters. The aliens think we're children playing with toys we don't understand, Blake continued. Well, it's time to show them what human children can do when they stop playing nice. Dr. Kevin Park stood up from his seat near the back of the room. He was a thin man with thick glasses who looked more like a teacher than a weapons designer. But his mind had created some of the most dangerous technology humanity had ever built. The Prometheus project is ready, sir, Park said. All systems have been tested and deployed. We're not the same species that begged for peace 3 years ago. Blake nodded and pressed a button on the table. The lights dimmed and holographic. Images filled the air above them. The first image showed a sleek human warship, but something was wrong with it. The ship seemed to flicker and fade, like it was only half there. Project Ghostwalker, Blake announced. Stealth technology that makes our ships nearly invisible to alien sensors. They can't fight what they can't see. The image changed to show a network of glowing lines connecting star systems across human space. The lines pulsed with energy, carrying information at impossible speeds. The Prometheus network, Blake continued. Quantum communication that lets us talk to any human ship or base instantly, no matter how far away they are. While the aliens are still sending messages that take weeks to reach their fleets, we can coordinate our entire military in real time. Commander Torres smiled. That's going to come in handy when they try to attack multiple colonies at once. The hologram changed again, showing automated defense platforms surrounding the human colony. The platforms moved on their own, tracking targets and firing weapons without any human control. Berserker Protocol, Blake said. Automated defense systems that can fight even if every human on a world is dead or captured. They don't get tired, they don't get scared, and they don't surrender. One of the younger officers raised his hand. Sir, what about their superior numbers? Intel reports say they have millions of ships. Blake's smile was cold. Numbers don't mean much if you're fighting the wrong kind of war. Dr. Park, tell them about our little discovery. Park stepped forward and waved his hand. The hologram now showed detailed scans of alien ships, with weak points highlighted in red. For 3 years, we've been studying every piece of alien technology we could get our hands on, Park explained. Not to copy it, but to find weaknesses. Their energy shields are very impressive against laser weapons and plasma cannons. But they never adapted to defend against old-fashioned kinetic weapons. Kinetic weapons? Asked another officer. Bullets, Torres said with a grin. Really, really big bullets traveling really, really fast. Turns out that when you shoot a chunk of metal at something fast enough, fancy energy shields don't help much. Park nodded. Their armor is designed to absorb energy attacks. A solid tungsten rod, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, will punch right through it like it's made of paper. What about their ground forces? asked Colonel Rick Hayes, who commanded the human army units. Even better, Park replied. They're used to fighting with energy weapons at long range. Most of them have never seen chemical explosives or kinetic weapons up close. A simple hand grenade will terrify them more than our most advanced plasma rifle. Blake turned to address the whole room. Every colony world, every outpost, every mining station has been fortified over the past 3 years. We've hidden weapons, supplies, and defensive systems everywhere. The aliens think they're going to attack helpless farming communities. Instead, they're going to find that every human world is a fortress. Commander Torres stood up. What about the fleet deployment, sir? Our main battle fleets are hidden in the outer systems, cloaked and waiting, Blake replied. The aliens will attack what they think are our home worlds, but they'll find mostly empty cities and automated defenses. Meanwhile, our real forces will hit their supply lines and command ships. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, the quantum physicist who had helped design humanity's most advanced weapons, spoke up from her corner of the room. Sir, what about the psychological warfare aspect? Blake raised an eyebrow. Explain. The aliens have ruled this galaxy for millions of years, Rodriguez said. They've never faced a species that fought back effectively. They're not just going to lose ships and soldiers. They're going to lose their confidence, their sense of superiority. Fear is a weapon too. Good point, Blake agreed. That's why we're not just going to defeat them. We're going to make sure they remember why they should be afraid of humanity. A communication alert sounded, and Admiral Ben Carter's face appeared on the main screen. He was speaking from his flagship, hidden in the dark space between star systems. General Blake, we've received word from our deep space scouts, Carter reported. Alien fleets are mobilizing from 12 different systems. It looks like they're planning a coordinated attack on our major colonies. How long do we have? Blake asked. Best estimate is 2 weeks before the first fleets reach our outer worlds. 3 weeks before they hit our core systems. Blake nodded. That's plenty of time. Commander Torres, how long for your task force to reach the Kepler system? Torres checked her tablet. 18 hours if we push the engines hard. Do it. I want you in position to hit their communications relay before they know we're fighting. Back. Understood, sir. Blake turned to address the room again. Ladies and gentlemen, for 3 years we've been preparing for this moment. The aliens think we're weak because we're young. They think we'll crumble under pressure because we've never faced a real war. He paused, looking each officer in the eye. They're about to learn that humanity didn't climb to the top of the food chain on Earth by being weak. We got there by being smart, adaptable, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. These aliens have ruled the galaxy for so long they've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival. Colonel Hayes stood up. What about rules of engagement, sir? Do we follow the Galactic War conventions? Blake's expression grew even colder. The aliens threw out the rulebook when they threatened to wipe out our entire species. We fight to win, whatever it takes. Show them the same mercy they plan to show our children. Dr. Park raised his hand. Sir, there's one more thing. The quantum mines are ready for deployment. Quantum mines? Torres asked. Weapons that exist in multiple dimensions at the same time, Park explained. They can hit a target even if it's using dimensional shields or phase technology. The aliens have never seen anything like them, Blake smiled. Deploy them around all major shipping routes in alien space. Let's see how they like having their supply convoys disappear without a trace. The meeting continued for several more hours as they finalized their battle plans. When it was over, the officers filed out to join their units and prepare for war. Blake stood alone in the command center, looking at the star maps that showed the positions of human and alien forces. Dr. Rodriguez approached him. General, do you really think we can win this? They outnumber us by thousands to 1. Blake turned to look at her. Doctor, let me ask you something. If you had to fight a war against a species that had never lost a battle, never faced real opposition, never had to adapt or innovate under pressure, how would you do it? She thought for a moment. I'd do something they'd never expect. Something they weren't prepared for. Exactly, Blake said. The aliens are about to get a lesson in human warfare. We don't fight fair, we don't fight honorably, and we don't fight by their rules. We fight to win. He turned back to the star map where red dots showed alien fleets moving toward human space. They wanted to see what humanity looks like when we stop being diplomatic, Blake said quietly. They're about to find out. Across human space, warships powered up their engines and cloaked systems activated. Automated defense platforms came online and hidden weapons prepared to fire. The aliens were coming, confident in their superior numbers and ancient technology. They had no idea they were flying into a trap designed by the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. The Morvac heavy cruiser Dominant Claw moved slowly through space toward the human mining colony called Outreach Station. Captain Vex Thara clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction as he watched the target grow larger on his screen. This would be easy work. 3 ships should be more than enough to deal with these primitive humans, he said to his crew. The bridge was filled with the clicking and buzzing sounds that Morvac made when they talked. They will surrender the moment they see our weapons. Behind him, 2 more Morvac cruisers followed in formation. Each ship was massive, covered in thick armor and bristling with energy weapons. They had conquered dozens of worlds with ships just like these. The humans would be no different. Sir, we are detecting the mining station, reported the sensor officer. It appears to be empty. Vex Tharas. Black eyes focused on the main screen. Outreach Station floated in the middle of an asteroid field, its lights dim and its docking bays open. No ships were visible around it. No signals came from its communication arrays. They ran away, Vex Tharas said with amusement. The cowards abandoned their own colony rather than face us. But far below the station, in a control room carved deep into the largest asteroid, Captain Roy Mitchell watched the alien ships approach on his sensors. He was a quiet man with steady hands and cold blue eyes. Next to him, Lieutenant Sarah Brooks tracked the exact position and speed of each enemy vessel. 3 heavy cruisers, just like intelligence predicted, Brooks whispered. They're coming. In exactly the way the simulations said they would. Mitchell nodded. Danny, are your fighters ready? In the asteroid field around them, pilot Danny Chun sat in the cockpit of his stealth fighter. He could see the alien ships through his canopy, but he knew they could not see him. His ship was invisible to their sensors, hidden among the rocks. Like a predator waiting to strike. All fighters are in position, sir, Chun replied over the radio. Just say the word. Mitchell watched as the alien ships moved closer to the station. They were so confident, so sure of their superiority. They had no idea they were flying into the most carefully planned trap in human history. Mousetrap is set, Brooks said quietly. The Morvac ships slowed as they approached the station. Vex Thara studied the readings from his sensors. Everything looked normal for an abandoned mining facility. The humans had left behind their equipment and fled like frightened animals. Begin docking procedures, he ordered. We will search the station for useful technology before we destroy it. But as the 3 ships moved into docking position, something unexpected happened. The asteroids around them began to move. What Vex Thara did not know was that every large asteroid in the field had been hollowed out over the past 3 years. Inside each one, human engineers had installed massive railguns. These weapons could fire solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds, fast enough to punch through any armor the aliens had ever built. All weapons fire, Mitchell said calmly. The asteroid field erupted in flashes of light. Dozens of hidden railguns fired at the same instant, sending tungsten rods screaming through space at a significant fraction of light speed. The aliens' energy shields, designed to stop laser beams and plasma bolts, were completely useless against solid metal traveling that fast. The first Morvac cruiser, the Eternal Victory, was hit by 7 projectiles simultaneously. The tungsten rods tore through its hull like it was made of tissue paper. Explosions ripped through the ship from bow to stern. Within seconds, it was a floating wreck with no survivors. The second cruiser, Blood of Conquest, tried to turn away, but 3 more railgun shots found their mark. The ship's reactor went critical and exploded in a ball of white-hot plasma that lit up the entire asteroid field. Only Vexthara's ship, the Dominant Claw, survived the first attack. But it was badly damaged, with holes punched through its armor, and half its weapons destroyed. "Impossible," Vexthara gasped, his mandibles clicking in terror. "Kinetic weapons? But they are primitives. How do they have such technology?" "Sir, detecting multiple small ships approaching," his sensor officer reported, his voice high with panic. Captain Mitchell's voice came over the radio to all human fighters. "All units, engage. Show them what happens when you threaten human colonies." Danny Chun was the first to break cover. His stealth fighter dropped its cloak and screamed toward the damaged Morvac ship, its weapons charging. Behind him, dozens of other human fighters appeared from their hiding places among the asteroids. The aliens had never seen anything like these ships. They were small and fast, darting between the asteroids like angry wasps. Their weapons were simple compared to alien technology, but they were effective. Missiles and kinetic cannons hammered the Dominant Claw from all sides. "This is for calling us primitives, you bastards," Chun said as he lined up his shot. His missiles struck the alien ship's bridge, and he could see the explosion tear through the command center. Vexthara felt his ship shaking apart around him. Emergency lights flashed red, and the smell of smoke filled the bridge. Half his crew was dead, and the other half was screaming in panic. "Send a distress signal," he ordered. "Tell the council what happened here." But before his communications officer could respond, another wave of human fighters attacked. These ones carried special weapons designed by Dr. Park's team. Quantum torpedoes that could punch through dimensional shields. Plasma cutters that burned through alien hull materials like a hot knife through butter. Lieutenant Brooks watched the battle from her command center. "Target the communication array," she ordered the railgun crews. "Don't let them call for help." A single tungsten rod, perfectly aimed, destroyed the alien ship's communication system in a shower of sparks. Now the Morvac had no way to warn their fleets about what they had discovered. Captain Mitchell stood up from his command chair. "All fighters, finish them off. No survivors." Danny Chun and his squadron made their final attack run. The Dominant Claw was already dead in space, its engines destroyed and its life support failing. But the humans wanted to send a message. When this was over, there would be nothing left but debris and radiation. "Remember Outreach Station," Chun said as his final missile found its target. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. Where the Morvac fleet had been, there was now only empty space filled with glowing metal fragments. The first alien blood had been spilled, and it had cost them 3 heavy cruisers and over 2,000 lives. In the control room, Lieutenant Brooks began recording a message for General Blake. "Sir, Outreach Station reporting. Operation Mousetrap is complete. 3 enemy cruisers destroyed with 0 human casualties. The aliens never knew what hit them." Captain Mitchell looked out at the asteroid field where his people had lived and worked for years. It no longer looked like a simple mining colony. Hidden weapons emerged from their concealment, and stealth ships decloaked to begin salvage operations. "Send a message to all human colonies," Mitchell ordered. "Tell them the war has begun. Tell them we drew first blood." Across the galaxy, the news spread quickly through human quantum communication networks. At Nexus Prime, The Galactic Council was still arguing about how to punish the humans when the reports started coming in. 3 of their heavy cruisers had been destroyed by a mining colony that was supposed to be defenseless. Speaker Zethkar's crystal body blazed with fury when he heard the news. Impossible. They must have had help from another species. Primitives cannot defeat Morvek heavy cruisers. But deep in human space, Dr. Emma Rodriguez was already analyzing the battle data. The alien ships had performed exactly as their computer models predicted. Their weapons, their tactics, their technology, everything was designed for fighting other ancient species with similar capabilities. They have no idea what they're up against, she reported to General Blake. They've been fighting the same way for millions of years. They've never had to adapt, never had to innovate under pressure. This is going to be easier than we thought. General Blake smiled as he looked at the battle reports. 3 enemy ships destroyed, 0 human losses. It was a good start, but it was only the beginning. Alert all fleet commanders, he ordered. The aliens now know we're serious about fighting. They'll send bigger fleets, more ships, heavier weapons. But they still don't understand what they're really fighting against. What are they fighting against, sir? Asked one of his officers. Blake turned to look at the star map, where red dots showed alien fleets moving toward human space in response to the attack on Outreach Station. Evolution, he said quietly. They're fighting against 4 billion years of evolution that created the most successful predator species this galaxy has ever seen. And they have no idea how to win that kind of fight. In the depths of space, human fleets began moving toward their battle positions. The aliens were coming with their superior numbers and ancient technology. But humanity was ready for them with something the aliens had never faced before: the fury of a young species fighting for its survival. The massive alien fleet looked like a moving city in space. Thousands of ships from 12 different species formed a wall of metal and energy that stretched across the darkness. At the front were the Zephyrian crystal ships, their surfaces glowing with power. Behind them came the Morvac swarms, each ship black and sharp like a giant insect. The ethereal communion moved in formations that shifted and changed like living clouds. Admiral Kethmora of the Zephyrian stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human star system grow larger on his screens. This would be the final battle. After the embarrassing loss at Outreach Station, the Council had gathered the largest war fleet in galactic history. Over 5 million ships were moving toward the human home worlds. The primitives will surrender when they see our might, Kethmara said to his officers. No species can stand against this force. But in the hidden fortress world of New Sparta, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the alien approach through her own sensors. The world looked like a dead rock from space, but deep underground lay the most advanced military command center humanity had ever built. 5 million ships, Sullivan said to her staff. That's a lot of targets. Colonel Rick Hayes stood beside her, studying the tactical displays. He commanded all human ground forces, and his face was grim. They're spreading out to hit multiple colonies at once. Standard alien tactics, overwhelming force applied everywhere. Which is exactly what we expected them to do, Sullivan replied. Dr. Rodriguez, are the quantum mines in position? Dr. Emma Rodriguez nodded from her station. All major shipping routes are mined. The moment they try to resupply their fleets, they'll start losing ships. Sullivan turned to address the entire command center. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we've been preparing for. The aliens expect us to fight like them, big fleets shooting at each other in open space. Instead, we're going to show them how humans really fight. The first alien ships entered human space near the colony world of Haven. It was supposed to be a farming planet with only basic defenses. The Morvek fleet commander, Vex Kaler, was confident this would be an easy victory. Begin bombardment of all population centers, he ordered. Show these humans the price of defying the Council. But as his ships moved into attack position, something unexpected happened. The space around Haven suddenly filled with explosions. Ships that had been invisible a moment before appeared out of nowhere, firing kinetic weapons at point-blank range. Commander Amy Torres led the attack from her ship, the USS Defiance. Her fleet had been hiding in the system for weeks, cloaked and waiting for this moment. All ships engage, Torres ordered. Remember, hit their command vessels first. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves hunting much larger prey. They were smaller and faster than the alien vessels, darting into attack and then disappearing before the enemy could respond. Their weapons were simple but devastating, solid metal projectiles that punched through alien shields like they weren't. Even their .vex single quotes, KLAR watched in horror as 3 of his heavy cruisers exploded within the first minute of combat. How are they doing this? Our sensors show empty space. Sir, detecting massive energy readings from the planet's surface, his tactical officer reported. On Haven, the Berserker Protocol had activated. Automated defense platforms rose from hidden bunkers all across the planet. Each platform was controlled by artificial intelligence that had been programmed with one simple goal: destroy anything that threatened human life. The platforms opened fire with weapons the aliens had never seen before. Quantum torpedoes that could hit targets in multiple dimensions at the same time. Gravity bombs that crushed ships by creating artificial black holes. Plasma lances that burned through the strongest armor. This is impossible, Vexcaler gasped. They're just farmers. How do they have such weapons? But the worst was yet to come. As his fleet tried to retreat, they found their path blocked by something even more terrifying than human weapons. Human tactics. The space around them suddenly filled with thousands of small objects. They looked like simple metal boxes, but each one contained the compressed fury of human engineering. When the first alien ship touched one, it exploded with the force of a small star. Dr. Rodriguez had called them party favors, quantum mines that existed in several dimensions at once. No matter how fast the alien ships moved or what kind of shields they used, the mines found them. The Morvac fleet, which had numbered over 200 ships when it arrived, was reduced to less than 50 vessels within an hour. Vexcaler's flagship was badly damaged, its hull breached in dozens of places. Send a distress signal, he ordered. Tell the other fleets we need immediate support. But when his communications officer tried to send the message, nothing happened. Unknown to the aliens, human cyber warfare specialists had been quietly infiltrating their networks for months. Every time they tried to call for help, their messages were either blocked or changed. At the Kepler system, another alien fleet was having similar problems. The Ethereal Communion had sent their most powerful warships to destroy the human military academy located there. They expected to find students and teachers cowering in fear. Instead, they found Colonel Hayes and 10,000 of the best-trained soldiers in human space. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Hayes said as his ground forces opened fire with weapons. That made no sense to alien minds. The humans used chemical explosives, crude devices that the aliens had abandoned millions of years ago. But when a simple hand grenade exploded next to an Ethereal Communion warrior, the energy being discovered that old technology could be just as deadly as new technology. "How can they hurt us with such primitive weapons?" one of the Ethereal commanders asked as his forces retreated in panic. Hayes smiled as he watched the enemy run. "Because while you were perfecting your energy manipulation, we were perfecting the art of making things explode." But the real shock came when the aliens tried to regroup in space. The human ships that attacked them moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. Every vessel knew exactly where every other vessel was, and they could change their tactics instantly based on new information. What the aliens didn't know was that every human ship was connected to the Prometheus network. Dr. Park's quantum communication system that allowed instant coordination across vast distances. While alien fleets were still sending messages by radio waves, human forces could share information at the speed of thought. Admiral Sullivan watched the battles from her command center, coordinating attacks across dozens of star systems simultaneously. All fleets, execute Ghost Protocol. Show them what happens when they fight an enemy they can't see or predict. Across human space, the pattern repeated itself. Alien fleets would arrive expecting easy victories, only to find themselves fighting an enemy that broke every rule of warfare they understood. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Human weapons ignored shields and armor that had protected alien vessels for millennia. Human tactics made no sense according to the ancient art of galactic warfare. On the Titan Hegemony command ship, General Morthake watched his forces being systematically destroyed by an enemy he couldn't understand. His ships were made of living metal and stone, nearly indestructible by conventional weapons. But the humans weren't using conventional weapons. "Sir, enemy ships are firing solid projectiles at us," his tactical officer reported. "Ignore them," Morthake rumbled. "Solid shot cannot penetrate our hulls." But these weren't ordinary projectiles. They were tungsten rods accelerated to nearly the speed of light by magnetic fields. When they hit the Titan ships, they punched through the living metal like it was butter. "Impossible," Morthake whispered as his flagship began to break apart. In the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Kefmero was having his own problems. His crystal ships were powered by pure energy, making them nearly immune to most weapons. But the humans had found a way around that too. "Sir, the enemy is using some kind of virus against our systems," his technical officer reported. "Our computers are being corrupted." What they were facing was another human innovation, cyber warfare on a scale the aliens had never imagined. While they had spent millions of years perfecting their energy weapons and shields, humans had learned to turn their own technology against them. Dr. Rodriguez smiled as she watched alien ships spinning out of control. Their own computers turned into weapons against them. While they were building better shields, we were learning to hack their brains. The battles raged for weeks across dozens of star systems. But the outcome was never really in doubt. The aliens had superior numbers and more advanced technology, but humans had something they had never encountered before: the ability to adapt and innovate in the middle of a fight. Each time the aliens developed a counter to human tactics, the humans changed their approach. Each time they thought they understood human technology, the humans revealed something new and unexpected. Within 3 months, 5 of the 12 council species had lost so many ships that they sued for separate peace. The ethereal communion withdrew entirely from the conflict, claiming that human violent resonance was disrupting their energy patterns. But for Admiral Sullivan and her forces, this was just the beginning. They had shown the galaxy that humanity could fight. Now it was time to show them that humanity could win. All fleets begin thaws. 1 year later, the massive alien space station Nexus Prime floated in space, just as it had before. But everything else had changed. Where once alien ships had docked proudly at its ports, now human warships surrounded the station like silent guardians. The USS Defiance held position directly in front of the main docking bay, its weapons pointed at the station's heart. Inside the Great Council Chamber, the scene was very different from a year ago. The circular seats that had once held representatives from 12 proud alien species were now mostly empty. Only 4 species remained, and they sat quietly with their heads bowed. The others were either completely destroyed or had fled to distant parts of the galaxy. At the center of it all, where Speaker Zethkar had once demanded humanity surrender, now stood Admiral Jake Morrison. He had been promoted after his successful mission as a diplomat, and now he wore the uniform of humanity's chief negotiator. But this time, he was negotiating from a position of strength. "Members of what used to be the Galactic Council," Morrison began, his voice carrying clearly through the enormous chamber. "You called us here once before to demand our surrender. Today, you are here to discuss your own survival." The four remaining alien representatives said nothing. They had learned the hard way that arguing with humans was a dangerous mistake. Speaker Zethkar's crystal body was dim and cracked. Many of his people's ships had been destroyed in the war, and his once mighty civilization was now reduced to hiding in a few star systems. When he spoke, his voice no longer sounded like beautiful music. It sounded tired and defeated. "What do you want from us?" he asked quietly. Morrison smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. "What we always wanted: peace, respect, the right to exist, without being threatened by species who think age gives them the right to rule others." On the main screen behind Morrison, President Jack Wilson appeared as a hologram. He had been elected leader of humanity during the war, and his face showed the weight of the decisions he had made. "People of the galaxy," Wilson began, addressing not just the council chamber, but every world that was watching this broadcast. "Humanity did not want this war. We asked for peace. We asked for the right to coexist as equals. You chose to see our desire for peace as weakness." He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "You were wrong." The hologram changed to show star maps of the galaxy. Huge sections that had once been controlled by alien empires were now marked in human blue. Not because humans had conquered them, but because the previous rulers no longer existed. "The Morva Collective is gone," Wilson continued. "Their hive worlds are empty ruins. The Titan hegemony retreated to the galactic rim and has not been heard from in 6 months. The Void Syndicate dissolved when their leadership was destroyed. 5 other species have simply vanished from known space." In the council chamber, the remaining aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all lost friends and allies in the war. "But we are not here to celebrate destruction," Wilson said. "We are here to build something better." Admiral Morrison stepped forward. "The Galactic Council, as it existed, is dissolved. No single group will ever again have the power to threaten entire species with extinction." He gestured to a new document that appeared on the screens around the chamber. "The Galactic Accord recognizes the right of every species to govern itself without interference. Trade and diplomacy will continue, but under agreements that protect everyone equally. Any species that threatens another will face the combined response of all free worlds." One of the surviving alien representatives, a Zephyrian named Velthara, raised her hand. "And who will enforce these new rules?" Morrison's smile became slightly colder. "We will." The truth was that humanity now controlled the galaxy's trade routes. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers. Any species that wanted to attack its neighbors would find their ships disappearing mysteriously, their communications jammed, their supply lines cut. "You see," Morrison continued, "we learned something important during this war. The galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs guardians. People who will step in when the strong try to crush the weak." Dr. Lisa Warren, who had stood beside Morrison during that first fateful meeting, now served as humanity's chief advisor on alien cultures. She stepped forward to address the chamber. "For millions of years, this galaxy was ruled by the oldest and strongest species," she said. "You created a system where age meant authority, where size meant power. But that system failed because it was based on fear rather than respect." She gestured to the mostly empty chamber around them. "Look around you. This is what your system created: war, destruction, and the extinction of entire civilizations. Humanity offers something different." Speaker Zethkar's crystal form flickered weakly. "What can you offer that we could not?" Admiral Morrison answered. "Hope, growth, chance for every species to reach its full potential without being held back by the fears of their elders." The chamber fell silent as the aliens considered this. Finally, Zethkar spoke again. How do we know you will not become what we were? How do we know that humanity will not grow old and cruel and decide to rule others? Morrison exchanged a look with Warren. It was a fair question and one they had discussed many times. Because, Morrison said slowly, humanity learned something during our rise to power on Earth. The moment you stop growing, stop adapting, stop being challenged, you start dying. We will never make the mistake of thinking we are finished learning. President Wilson's hologram nodded. The galaxy is a big place with room for everyone. But it has no room for bullies who think strength gives them the right to destroy others. He looked directly at the alien representatives. You have a choice. You can accept the new reality and join us in building a better galaxy. Or you can follow your former allies into the darkness between the stars. But you will never again have the power to threaten innocent species with extinction. The negotiations that followed were brief. The remaining alien species had little choice but to accept humanity's terms. They would keep their remaining worlds, but they would never again have the power to threaten others. As the meeting ended, Zefkar approached Morrison privately. His crystal form was dim with shame and defeat. I must ask, he said quietly. How did you do it? How did a species so young become so formidable? Morrison considered the question for a moment. It was the same question every surviving alien had asked. You made one critical error in your assessment of humanity, he said finally. What error? Morrison looked out at the human ships surrounding the station, each one representing the determination of an entire species to survive and thrive. You assumed that because we were young, we were weak. But youth isn't weakness, youth is potential. And humanity's potential had no limits. He turned back to Zefkar. You see, you ruled through superiority in age. We learned through struggle and adaptation. Every challenge made us stronger. Every threat forced us to innovate. While you were resting on the achievements of your ancestors, we were building the tools to surpass them. Zefkar was quiet for a long moment. And now? Now we make sure this never happens again, Morrison replied. We watch. We guard. We make sure that every species in this galaxy has the chance to grow and learn without fear. The meeting ended, and the alien representatives returned to their ships to carry the news to their remaining worlds. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of human guardianship had begun. 6 months later, Dr. Emma Rodriguez sat in her office on New Terra, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Trade was flowing again between the surviving worlds. New species were emerging from hiding, no longer afraid of being conquered by more powerful neighbors. The galaxy was healing. Status report, she said to her assistant. All shipping lanes are secure. 3 minor disputes were resolved peacefully with human mediation. The Rigel colonies are reporting first contact with a previously unknown species. Rodriguez smiled. And they're treating them as equals? Yes, ma'am. The new protocols are being followed perfectly. Rodriguez looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were patrolling the void, making sure that no species would ever again face the choice between submission and extinction. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, they had freed it. And in doing so, they had discovered their true purpose among the stars, not as rulers, but as guardians of the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The young species had taught the ancient ones a lesson that would echo through the cosmos for generations to come. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from age or size, but from the courage to stand up for what is right, no matter the odds. The galaxy was safe, and humanity would make sure it stayed that way.